Okay, so I meant to do a response to this video way back about a year ago now, I think, and I actually did attempt to do it, but that was when I didn't know how to edit anything properly, and now I think I've gotten my editing skills to the point where I can at least do this coherently. So, the video I'm covering right now is a little thing called Just Rights, saying that, hey, writers should learn these certain lessons from the Legend of Korra's writing, even though their writing is complete garbage. What lessons do we have to learn, oh delicate wanderer? I really don't want to have to know, because holy shit, Legend of Korra's writing's bad, dude. I mean, do I have to go into detail? I shouldn't have to, but I guess I'm gonna have to in this video. Also, yes, this is the same Just Right who was in the debate with Mahler and Wolf right after The Last Jedi came out, and, you know, created the progenitor of EFAP, if you will. And, you know, remember, Just Right ignores all The Last Jedi's flaws, and just is he's the format for the themes. He is the man who embodies themes. So, yeah, let's see what the themes can do to save Korra's writing. And I can't wait for him to say queer theory, because if he says queer theory in regards to Korrasami, I'm gonna laugh my ass off so hard. Oh, so here we go.
Whenever someone asks me why I love The Legend of Korra, I tell them because it is a show about big ideas.
Called it big ideas equals themes. The themes, themes. It has to be all about themes. It's all the themes. Like, really, fool? That's your only reason for liking it? That's your main reason for liking it, is that it has big ideas. Well, by that logic, everyone should love the Star Wars prequels then, because that was a series about big ideas. But no, people loathe the prequels right now. Still do, to this day. Even if people can find ways to appreciate it, people still loathe the prequels right now. So, just having a show about big ideas isn't really going to help you in any logical standard.
Egalitarianism, terrorism, theocracy, anarchy, freedom, fascism, and PTSD, just to name a few. And even though it is allegedly a children's cartoon, it deals with these themes in a highly sophisticated way.
So you're just going to name a few things like theocracy, democracy, fascism, terrorism. Isn't all that stuff explored in Avatar: The Last Airbender? And not only is done to a much better degree than Korra, but is one of the best in terms of doing it for a kids show, while Korra just handles it in the most generic and albeit childish way possible, instead of handling it, you know, maturely, even though people say that the show is more mature. Yeah, you lost me, bud.
See, most great stories, when you get down to the core of what they're saying, operate exactly like essays. In fact, I describe a story as an essay in action.
An essay in action. I wonder what he means by... I wonder what he means by this. I really do, because this sounds a bit sketchy.
And essays are about presenting an idea as true.
Say what? Presenting an idea as... No! That's not what all stories do. Granted, there are some stories that do that. A lot of people who push political ideologies in their stories, or at least have that as a subtext in their stories, yes, they're pushing their ideas as something that is right. Like Robert Heinlein's Starship Troopers, one of the most misunderstood books in human history, where people think it's fascist, but it's not. He's presenting his own political ideas, and he's presenting it as right in the context of this story. And there are so many other authors who do that. But not all stories do that. Not all stories really do that, okay? For frame of reference, I will reference Red Dead Redemption 2. It's not a story with huge underlying philosophy. It's just a story about the redemption of these men in this gang. Red Dead Redemption 2 specifically, and Red Dead Redemption 1 with John Marston. So you had Arthur Morgan and John Marston. Arthur Morgan is this criminal, it's a robber who's been on the run with his gang for years. He's grown to know them like family, but when times are getting hard, he starts to lose faith in his leader as his leader is going clinically insane. And he also contracts a sickness. This is spoiler territory, I know, I'm sorry. But he contracts a major sickness, tuberculosis. He starts to realize all the bad things that he's done in his life, and all he wants to do in his final days is to help people. Right, Arthur tries to correct the wrongs that he has done in the world. And he sees John, Jack, Abigail. He sees that whole family. He thinks he and the others are too far gone, but he knows that John, Jack, and Abigail can leave this life of criminals, can leave this terrible life that gave them nothing but misery in the time that they've had in the game, and just get out of there and start a new life. And that's what they end up doing, and Arthur ends up sacrificing himself for that idea. And then John Marston, he does a lot of morally bad things in Red Dead Redemption 1, but he does it to protect his family. He does it to save them from the government, even facing down the man that betrayed him. And then he ended up giving his life when those men who made him do the things he did to protect his family came after him again. He protected his family. Right? It's not presenting an idea that's just right in and of itself. Of course, protecting your family is something that's right. But the story's main thing is about redemption, and it builds up throughout both of those stories in order to make it ring true. But it's not something to try to say this is exactly what you should be doing, right or wrong, in every situation. Because I tell you, there would be some things that you would have to change that story to make it just completely right. And it would lose all of its meaning. So you gotta give me a better example of it. No, you don't compare essays and stories where you're just presenting a right idea. You're just presenting an idea in half the essays anyway.
Supporting evidence for that idea and discredit opposing positions. But to understand the way that Korra does it, we have to talk about a 19th century German philosopher. His name is Georg Wilhelm Friedrich Hegel, and he is known for arguing that good ideas can come from unexpected places.
Okay, let's see how that ties into the Korra, as a picture of the evil uncle from book 2 shows up on the screen as soon as I paused it. This is gonna be really fun. The bad guys were right all along. Please don't do that just right, please.
Including our most hated enemies. According to Hegel, human civilization progresses by swinging from one extreme position to another until an equilibrium is reached. He uses this way of thinking in his writing style, as a way of reaching the truth by exploring both sides of an idea. It's what's called the Hegelian dialectic, and it has 3 parts. First,
okay, I actually agree. Somewhat. Granted, there are many extremes. It's not just between two sides. I think there are many extremes that have just come up over human civilization. It's been so many different ideologies, so many different ways people ran governments or how they controlled certain people. And the wars that were fought. All right, and they evolved into what we have now. But I really want to hear what he's going to say in regards to the villains. But still, meeting up in the middle, that is a good point. Meeting things in the middle, it helps stuff. It helps in real life, hence why I'm a centrist.
It's a thesis, an idea. Then it presents the opposite of that idea, or the antithesis, antithesis. The tension created by these two ideas leads to a new understanding, or synthesis. The important part to remember here is that unlike the essays you probably wrote for school where you present an idea and the proof behind it,
as he is saying something that is looking to be objectively right, he's writing some shit down on the computer in MLA style. It says, here's an idea I had. It's the most correct anyone has ever had. It's so right to make Ted Cruz's head spin. What the fuck? Why are you bringing Ted Cruz into this? Like, I get it. I think Just Right is very, very much on the politically left, but this conversation did not need some political hand throwing, I guess I would say, or it didn't need any mudslinging. So it's like, That's pretty weird.
You present an idea and the proof behind it. In the Hegelian dialectic, there is a transformation of the original idea. And that brings us back to the legend of Korra. As the Avatar, Korra fights to maintain balance in the world, and each season she is confronted with an antagonist who disrupts this balance, an antagonist who is representative of a particular ideology.
Okay, this is something that Aang had to go through. Granted, Aang had to go through many bad people in his time in the original show, but they didn't necessarily represent, like, ideologies. They just represented a writing of a character. Hence, Ozai is like a Darth Vader type villain, just without the relatability. He's just really one-dimensional. But that didn't stop him from being well acted and having good dialogue throughout. But see what these people he's talking about. So he's talking about the main villains. Amon, Unalaq, the airbending guy who was in prison and somehow got airbending back in that bullshit thing from book 3, and Kuvira from book 4, which represents... These all represent equality, freedom, anarchy, and fascism. No, Unalaq wanted to... he started a civil war in order to gain control of his brethren in the South. So you're forgetting that whole thing. Amon didn't want equality. He wanted to fucking... Well, it may have been wanting to make everyone equal, hence by taking away people's bending, but that motherfucker was a rebel... No, not a rebel. That motherfucker was ruthless. He was not... He was down for just killing everybody. He was more like Lenin than anything else. And this dude that represents anarchy, the guy from the Red Lotus with the airbending powers, because that has to be a thing apparently. That dude murdered people. Yes, so he does represent anarchy. He represents just wanting to kill people. He even kills the Earth Queen, from what I remember in book 3. So you have a point with that one. Then Kuvira represents fascism. No, I haven't seen anything out of book 4, but I highly doubt she represents fascism. I think she just represents really dumb villains. So, yeah.
Korra is the thesis in this equation, and they represent the antithesis.
Yeah, so while Korra is supposed to be keeping balance with everything, what does she do? Well, she's not at peace at all. She doesn't have balance at all. She acts like a cunt all the time, and actually represents the embodiment of at least 3 of those ideas because of how much of a jackass she is. Well, not 3 of those ideas. She represents an out-of-control avatar, one that's not actively trying to do the right thing. She may be doing the right thing in practice, but she does a lot of bad shit to people around her. And the only reason that she does the good shit is because if she doesn't, whoops, everybody's going to die in each of these scenarios. Like, if she doesn't stop them on, people are going to get their bending taken away, and it's going to get really fucked up. If she doesn't stop Unalaq, civil war is going to erupt into an entire world conflict, along with the looming spiritual conflict. The anarchy dude, nobody stops him, governments will fall. Nobody stops Kuvira, she's going to make an end of Evangelion thing, I guess, because she's got giant robots now.
The critical part of all this, however, is that the Legend of Korra makes sure to give each of its villains some sort of ideological merit. They are not all pure mustache-twirling evil people like the Fire Lord is in the show's predecessor series, The Last Airbender.
Well, I mean, you're kind of ignoring the nuance that he's not exactly a mustache-twirling villain. He is a stereotype of a villain, but he still has a lofty goal that he wants to obtain. He wants to obtain world dominance, following the path of his grandfather, who, kind of fucked up the world to, pave the way for 100 years of war. Killed an entire race of people. Well, almost killed an entire race of people, save for Aang. And, they wanted to spread their message around the world. At least that's how it started out, but then it became more and more bloodthirsty over time because of the looming conflict, because of the war. And then it comes down to Ozai. Of course he'd be like that. I actually would expect someone like the grandson of a tyrant who started a century-long conflict to be that bloodthirsty. Alright? He doesn't have to represent an ideology. He's already that fucked of a character. He's already that fucked up.
Well, Vaatu is, since he is literally the manifestation of evil, but other...
Are we gonna just ignore how Vaatu and Rava just contradict, like, everything from the original show? Are we just gonna ignore that? So that way you can keep going with more themes? Alright, because I get what you're trying to say with this, but it's not flowing with Avatar as a whole. You're just using this as Korra as just a singular step, not as Korra in a much bigger context and a much bigger world, which, if the writers had actually done their homework on their own damn show, they would have actually made something pretty incredible. But guess what? They didn't.
Wise, the show remembers the synthesis step. It synthesizes the good parts of their ideas into the world of the show. When the show ends, benders and non-benders are equals. The spirit world...
As he shows fucking Korra and Asami holding hands going to the fucking portal, benders and non-benders are equal now, despite not being actually equal before. But bitch, the fuck, you got fucking skyscrapers, flying blimps, cars and shit, and electric gloves, warships, somehow don't have guns, but Jesus Christ, I think you had the technology in The Legend of Korra that would allow for benders, if something were to go wrong, well, non-benders, if something were to go wrong in the world, to actually defend themselves against benders. Okay? Like, Jesus Christ, you not see how easily Amon was able to take people out with just a small army. He managed to take control of an entire fucking city, managed to push back a fleet and defeat that fleet when they attacked the city in order to get it out of their control. Like, what the fuck? Like, Jesus Christ, non-benders can take care of themselves. And they were already equal. We didn't get any of this benderism stuff in the entirety of Avatar: The Last Airbender. And then when they did it in The Legend of Korra, the world was so... And I'm going to borrow this line from ER here. The world's already so biased towards non-benders that it doesn't even matter if there's some discrimination going on. You're living in the most advanced technological time right now. You're living in the most advanced technological time right there, and you're able to do so many different things without the need for bending. Hell, they even use benders, as it's shown in just a couple seconds of a scene in Book 1, where Mako is lightning bending to, I guess, give power to the city. Decker Shadow face palm.
Is reconnected to the physical world. Hereditary monarchs are going away, and there is peace and order. All four villains can claim a victory in this regard.
Despite not only getting their asses handed to them, but having none of their goals actually be, accomplished in any way, shape, or form. I mean, remember, Amon dies, Unalak gets fucking dusted, the airbending dude gets put in prison for even longer than he was going to be originally anyway, which was already a life sentence, and he got fucked in the ass. And then Kuvira got her ass not only handed to, but also put in prison, based on what I've seen. So, no, I highly doubt that. Okay, remember, Mon's true goal was to make everyone equal on a physical basis. That means he was going to take away every motherfucker's bending. No one will be able to bend anymore. No bending at all. That's not equality.
In other words, the world of the story itself has a character arc.
The world has a character arc. The utter dumbassery of this statement. I don't even know what to say. Someone give me a cigarette.
Season 4, Toph basically gives Korra a lecture on Hegelian philosophy, encouraging her to learn from her adversaries.
You ever consider maybe you could learn something from them? The problem was those guys were totally out of balance, and they took their ideologies too far.
By analyzing the merits and flaws of her antagonists, Korra is able to arrive at the overarching thesis of the show, that the ends do not justify the means, and that no one ideology has all the answers.
Well, no shit. That's like something that you would be taught in preschool philosophy class, you dumb motherfucker. Like, really? Like, this is something that we've been doing since the dawn of time. Why do you need to push forward this message? What is the point of doing it? It's something that teachers literally teach your kids in class if they're competent enough. But this is something I fucking learned by my goddamn self, by the way, when I was reading in history books. Because guess what? Learning from all the shit in the past will definitely lead to a better future. Which is a good message, but when you handle it so retardedly, like, why? What's the fucking point? Why? Why? Like, Jesus Christ, all you gotta do is make a competent, well-structured measure of it, which they don't ever do, and they save all this shit for the 4th fucking book, instead of putting it all throughout the entire goddamn series. It just shows that it's not even based in merit at all, except for just one specific book. So it's not in context for the entire book. It's in context for just one specific book because of one fucking bitch.
This is what makes the show a truly contested contest of ideas. You can see this strategy at play in a less political way when Korra deals with post-traumatic stress disorder. Her anxieties are visually presented as a shadowy version of herself. Thesis, antithesis.
But she's had like PTSD throughout the entirety of the show, from what I'm understanding of. I mean, remember, she had nightmares of Amon and shit, and then after getting beaten shit out of at one time, crying in Tenzin's arms, being a character for 2 seconds, and then healing from her wounds, then having to literally have her freaking memories erased just so that way she can learn shit about her past. I think she's had to deal with PTSD. It just wasn't always shown. Which is, again, another fault on the writers. But then again, are we going to ignore how, like, Aang got PTSD a lot? Like, you know, having the guilt of not being there for his people when they were all slaughtered by the fucking firebenders? Yeah, do you not remember that shit? You know, the long episodes where Aang went over his past and detailed just why things were the way they are and how he feels so fucking guilty about it, and then having Katara say, hey, maybe this was how it should have gone because, no, if you were there with them, you would have died. You wouldn't have been able to survive and everything. And having to come to the moral dilemma, right, Aang's having this huge moral dilemma that he doesn't want to have to deal with because he's a fucking kid. Okay, save this message for children characters, not for near adult women. No, adult women, because Korra's, I think, 19 maybe, or 19, 20 by the time the series ends. So it's like, save that for another character.
Only when she confronts and accepts her situation instead of avoiding it as she has been, is she able to overcome this mental block. Synthesis.
All she ever did was avoid it. Like, really, she actively avoided her duties as the Avatar for 3 goddamn books. Do I have to go over the shit that she just did in season 1? Like, book 1. Wow, such an arrogant cunt. Book 2, even more of an arrogant cunt. Not even really doing anything with the spirit until the near end of the series. Well, near end of the book. And then in book 4, apparently, all the spirits just fucking segregate themselves. She failed in her quest to bring balance. There was no balance. She failed in the most miserable way possible. All she ever did was avoid it. Like, really, she actively avoided her duties as the Avatar for 3 goddamn books. Do I have to go over the shit that she just did in season 1? Like, book 1. Wow, such an arrogant cunt. Book 2, even more of an arrogant cunt. Not even really doing anything with the spirit until the near end of the series, like near end of the book, and then in book 4, apparently, all the spirits just fucking segregate themselves. She failed in her quest to bring balance. There was no balance. She failed in the most miserable way possible.
I see so many stories where the opponent is irredeemably evil, where the hero has nothing of substance to learn from them, and that makes for a stale story.
And he uses X-Men Apocalypse as an example, which I've heard is not a good film. I get that. But you don't have to learn something from a villain. You shouldn't have to half the time. There are villains who are way more captivating, not by spreading ideology, but for just being fucking evil. And I mean, like, really goddamn evil. I mean, yeah, having a antagonist like Dutch van der Linde would certainly make your story deeply layered and complex. But you're just gonna ignore, like, just some evil motherfuckers? That doesn't make a story bad. Like Victor Zsasz from the Batman games. That dude is the epitome of evil. Same thing with the Joker. The Joker just wants chaos. Zsasz wants to just kill people. His innate ability is just to kill people. And then the Joker, all he wants to do is cause chaos. He doesn't give a shit about ideology. Hell, he alienates more criminals than he ends up supporting. Okay? And the only real thing that he ever actually wants to do is try to take down the Batman or have the Batman kill him. That's it. Like, the Joker is the epitome of just a pure evil villain who will stop at nothing to just be evil. And he kills thousands of people all the time in the process. It's like, wow. So you're just basically saying that every Batman story involving the Joker, even The Dark Knight, would be stale by that logic. That's retarded.
By embracing a Hegelian worldview, the Legend of Korra is able to navigate complex ideas while also making its characters more interesting. But when handling all of these lofty ideas, the writers definitely ran the risk of coming off as too preachy.
As they said, they stated that. Remember, if you don't like Korrasami, you're a homophobe. Even if you're gay and or bisexual and you don't like how it just is out there pandering and how it's not even actually really shown in the series at all in the animated show, and then you just shove it off into a comic book to be in it. Yeah, boy.
Sound like J. Walter Weatherman from Arrested Development.
That's why you always leave a note.
Now, Korra is not without a few scenes that state the theme explicitly. The Toph scene from earlier is an example of.
I'm gonna borrow this line from Mahler. You shouldn't, unless you are making stuff that is explicitly for super little kids, don't state your theme. It makes you come off as retarded. It makes you come off as unintelligent. Okay? One of the big things about themes is that people pick apart the show to find the theme, not that it's actually stated. Granted, Korra is a kid show, but it's being touted as more mature. So you would think that they would try to hide the theme, at least make it somewhat hard for people to find out what exactly it's supposed to mean. Guess not.
That. But it's also brilliant at showing the superiority of one ideology over another through action.
But I thought no ideology was right, and that all the villains have all their stuff done right, and that everything was done according to their plan, and blah, blah, blah. Yeah.
Through action, especially in the third season finale. It does this by using a technique called poetic justice. Poetic justice is basically when the good guys are rewarded and the bad guys are punished, but usually the bad guys are punished in some sort of ironic way. So in season 3, Korra is facing off against Zahir and a small band of skilled benders trying to take down all governments and institutions. His henchmen are each defeated when their own power is ironically turned against them, which is a simple form of poetic justice, but Zahir...
We're not retards. Poetic justice is something that's used very often in literature. What's your point? How does that fit into the overall underlying theme? What? That their powers are comparable to ideology? They're just their fucking powers. Yeah, lady getting her fucking head metal bended closed so that way she can blow her fucking head off. That's pretty fucking poetic. Doesn't mean it represents their ideology. It just means they're fucking retarded for letting them get themselves in that situation in the first place.
Is astounding in its multi-layered use of irony. It's not just one ironic reversal that does him in, it's 5 distinct reversals working in harmony. 1. Zahir is an airbender, but is defeated by airbending. That's ironic.
Oh boy, he gets defeated using airbending. That's poetic. I clapped for the themes, I clapped.
2. The same event which gave him his powers gave power to the people who beat him. 3. Zahir's entire philosophy is about the need to disband institutions, but he's defeated by a group of characters just now learning to operate as a cohesive group. 4. Zahir's arc this season is about becoming unfettered by this world, both metaphorically by giving up all worldly desires, and literally by learning to fly. In the end, he is torn out of the sky.
Well, honestly, I just think that just shows that he's a hypocritical villain, just like Amon, because, you know, finding out the whole context of Amon, he's pretty hypocritical, and then this one's here, he's got a fucking love interest. That's a worldly desire. So yeah, he's a hypocritical villain. I think that what he's spouting is bullshit. And I think that's what the show is actually trying to convey, is that what he was spouting was bullshit. Not that he was right in some sort of way.
5. He only loses because he chained Korra up. For a guy constantly talking about freedom, he's guilty of imprisoning a lot of people. When he first escapes, he doesn't just escape, he locks up his captors. He imprisons Mako and Bolin later on in the season, and only releases them so he can ensnare Korra in a trap. Both times he fights Korra, he does so while she is in chains. The second time, she uses those chains against him.
So fucking what? It's just setup and payoff. Is it really that big of a deal just for setup and payoff? Yeah, he gets defeated in ironic ways. Woohoo. Not like it really adds much nuance to the situation, considering all the other problems in the narrative that you are conveniently ignoring.
In a single scene, Zahir's hopes and dreams are dashed, his ideology is defeated, and his hypocritical actions are turned against him. And the show does this without anyone ever having to say something like this. And that's why you never lead an anarchist revolt.
I don't know, considering the cringy jokes that are in the entirety of The Legend of Korra anyway, I think that would actually make for a pretty funny joke.
The Legend of Korra does not have the same kind of epic sweep that its predecessor series had, nor is its supporting cast as iconic, but it is.
No shit, Sherlock. Like, really? It took you 6 minutes to find that out. It took you 6 minutes to find that out. Like, wow. Not even on... Like, you're not even going to say on first glance that it's nowhere near as iconic. Well, no shit. The supporting cast sucks except for Tenzin as a whole. Like, except for Tenzin and maybe Jinora. They're the only ones I find any nuance in at all in the supporting cast that wasn't from the original show. And then the fucking scale of it sucks. It's so inconsistent. It goes from super small to super big so many times in each book. It's the most inconsistent fucking thing when it comes to scale, and it sucks. Alright, the scale in Avatar: The Last Airbender was always consistent. You had a looming war going over your head, but they always built up the conflict they're always building up the conflict that would come up at the end of the season by building things very slowly throughout. Alright, especially in book 3, where guess what? Aang has to defeat the Fire Lord at the end. How'd they build up the conflict? Aang finds out his death has been faked for him, even though he did actually die, but people think he's dead, and so he's trying to lay low. And as things build up through the season, they're trying to hide his identity, but they're also trying to help people and actually keep the rebellion going. Well, not the rebellion, but the fight against the Fire Nation going. And then, middle of the season, guess what? Aang shaves off his head, which was representing, Aang's, hiding. He's not hiding anymore. And then, end of the season, he distances himself from everyone to try to find the best possible way for him to deal with the Fire Lord in keeping with his own morals. And he finds that way, and he defeats the Fire Lord with it. Okay, and it's this big, huge battle, but guess what? They built it. They built it throughout every book. That's not something that Korra did with everything. Everything is so disjointed. Alright, everything comes up in that season and that season alone for their conflicts, and it's retarded.
But it is every bit as great as The Last Airbender, just in a different way.
No, it's not.
Where that show was more about personal growth, The Legend of Korra highlights themes of global significance. It's a show about...
And this is the biggest problem with Korra as a whole when you talk about its subtext, is that it's not about personal stuff. Hence why Korra never grows as a character. She's always a bitchy cunt. Nothing's ever about people telling her down from how much of a dick she's being, making her grow and change personally as a character. It's her apparently just changing as the Avatar, and apparently that makes her a better person, ignoring all the bad shit that she's done to people around her. Alright, and Avatar: Last Airbender, so much done in personal growth for every single main character. Every single one of them has a change. That's something you don't get in Korra. Everyone is just the same. Granted, there are two who break the mold, but none of them change in any significant way. And it just shows, while the writers just wanted to stroke themselves by talking about politics in their stories, they utterly failed at writing a consistent character story, which is what Avatar is. As much as it is a world, much as it is a breathing world, it has to have good characters, just like Star Wars. And just like Star Wars, they both fucked it up in the sequels. And guess what? You love both of them just right.
Show about testing your beliefs against other people and finding common ground. And that's reinforced in every plot line of the show.
That's not common ground. All those motherfuckers are either dead or imprisoned. That's not common ground. But really? What the fuck? Jesus Christ, you not know basic civics, sir.
More than anything else, The Legend of Korra makes us wonder, just as Hegel does, what great ideas might be lost if we don't open ourselves up to change.
What the fuck was that clusterfuck? Jesus Christ, that logic was just... Good lord. Okay, so he's just right. It's definitely going to be a subject of discussion when it comes to my Legend of Korra series, especially when it comes to how I think Legend of Korra just downright killed film criticism as a whole. And, you know, it's these people that love The Legend of Korra and The Last Jedi. No nuance to the consistency of the story or the characters. Just ideas and nothing else. Not the nuances that lead to those ideas. Just the ideas. Just because there's terrorism and fascism and anarchy and all this stuff that's in there doesn't mean that it has the nuance to make it well-rounded and well-written. Because Avatar: The Last Airbender has most of those. And they do it 10 times better. And guess what? You're better off just watching that. So, thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed that little response. This will be the first one of its kind. And, yeah, I want to die now. So, goodbye. Don't die.